Doki doki, as I've mentioned in the past, is a really large fixation of mine. What's important to know is why it's just so capturing. How and why does it subvert your expectations as the player, only to later shock you with graphic horror and manipulative writing? The color choice of this title screen gives us these cute pastel colors, easing us in immediately. Pink polka dots on a white background, and each of the main girls striking different poses that hint at their personalities, cluing you in on as to who you're going to meet later. Even the music is bold and bright, using different wind instruments and a poppy drum beat, very welcoming and warm, and almost overwhelmingly cheery. The very beginning of the game paints a colorful atmosphere, an innocent and quiet neighborhood except for the students that make their daily commute to school. As we, the player, watch our morning unfold, Sayori runs out to us, almost late to school. This immediately gives us that childhood best friend character, though who we're playing as seems less than enthusiastic about her appearance. And even saying that, quote, doesn't seem like the kind of friend you'd see yourself making today. Something to note about Sayori's entrance is that she'd been sleeping in, an important note for later. Eventually we're roped into the literature club by Sayori, having Natsuki make cupcakes for us under the impression that we had agreed to join the literature club. As we make it to the literature club, all our usual archetypes are laid out for us. Sayori, the aforementioned childhood best friend, Yuri, the shy intellectual, Natsuki, the tsundere, and Monika, the leader, the perfect student. This is all fairly typical for a dating sim, though an immediate oddity is the character sprites. Everyone avoids facing the screen directly except for Monika. Even despite the warm greeting, it's a little unsettling just how she's peering at you the whole time. But an important note is that all these characters have their own quirks. Natsuki has a softer side, Sayori is strangely dependent, Yuri has some dark secret, and Monika, as said before, is perfect. Too perfect. Another early hint that something's off with the game is the poems. We don't see anything odd or concerning in the beginning of the game with these poems. But as time goes on, we see with characters like Sayori and Yuri that they're hiding something that they don't want the player to know. Of course, I suppose that's hiding. For example, Sayori has a poem about giving away jars of rainbows, which is a metaphor for her depression. And I think it's just a really smart way of telling the player that something's not quite right, even from the first, 30 minutes of the game. We can even make our own poems, making it easier for us to discover more about each of the characters, and thus their dark secrets. Though, what we learn about Sayori is inevitable, but for characters like Natsuki or Yuri, we can really learn just what's off. And with Yuri specifically, we can tack down some of her traits, like somewhat obsessive or potentially self-harming. I think another thing is the debate sparked between Yuri and Natsuki, where it's set up as just this thing where it's, they're fighting over the player, and they're trying to lie because, they like the player. But what's underneath is showing, I feel like, these characters who are more human than is initially let on, is meant to probably display just this fight between them for, almost laughs. Though the fight between Natsuki and Yuri kind of gives us this thing where we're already not interacting that much with Sayori, and the game really hasn't started. There's a lot more scenes between Yuri, Monika, and Natsuki, but Sayori's kind of in the background. Despite being our main friend, it's odd that she's given less screen time than the other characters. This clues us in as to her depression later in the game, because when we eventually meet at our house, she reveals to us her depression, which, as I've mentioned before, was hinted at in the poem she gave us prior. I think it's taken care of very well, but what's more important is how it subverts these expectations of how we didn't expect this. as a dating sim, this is obviously out of the regular. What's really shocking, and the first real nail in the coffin, is Sayori's death. She was revealed to have hung herself due to her depression. Monika had said something to her. Now, this is never explicitly said, but we can assume that she did something to egg Sayori on to killing herself. Sayori's death sparks this slow burn of Act 2. Everyone's acting like everything's normal because Monika erased Sayori from existence. She didn't only kill herself, but she no longer existed in the game. Even if you look in the game files, she was removed entirely. It makes it really weird now. You're the only one who knows about her death, and all the other characters go on like normal. I think another hint towards Monika is that she literally says you shouldn't have left Sayori like that, and you should probably go check up on her. This just gives us this idea that Monika knows something we don't, before we had any clue that Sayori had killed herself. I think a big thing about DDLC is the personalized horror. Not in the sense that every copy is different, but that it's made for the player, not the character. Monika never really talks to the player. She's talking to you the whole time. And this can even be seen in her poems where it's breaking the fourth wall, ending with things like save me and load me. It's very odd, and I think it's a really clever hint once again. And there's almost this futile effort, like, despite what you write in the poems, despite which characters you appease, you always get the same ending. You always end up in that room with Monika alone. And that's what's so personal too, is that ending where she just sat with you. But we aren't there yet. The next very important thing, before I really get into the last part with Monika, is Yuri's death. This is our given. This tells us 100% Monika's doing this. If we weren't 100% sure before, now we are. We see in the code, she starts using code and stuff that we can see in the top left of the screen. And that's our key. You know, we see Yuri die, and something we're told by Monika directly is that she'd been hiking up their personalities. Sayori was made to be more depressed, Yuri was made to be more obsessive, and Natsuki was made to be more unlikable generally. And now we're kept with Monika. This is our big subversion. This whole time, this was all a fake. None of this was real. It was just so Monika could talk to the player. And now that she has you, she'll keep you for eternity. What's very interesting is that they literally wrote out, I believe it's 2 hours of dialogue for just sitting there. And it just makes it feel so much more real, like you're actually talking to a sentient AI that's just sitting with you eternally. But eventually, as you're given hints earlier in the game, you have to delete Monika's file. And when you do, she screams in agony, and it's just this very real feeling, like she's in pain and you killed her. But she's not dead. You deleted her file, and she's obviously very upset at you, even though the player really did nothing wrong when Monika's the one who killed all of her friends, even something stated by her herself. The last subversion of the game, and I know I've used that word quite a lot here, is we can get back to the original game. We can delete Monika's file, she reopens the game, Monika's no longer in it, but that's not the real last subversion. The last subversion is Sayori actually turns, since she's the club leader, she turns on us, and she is the next Monika in that sense. And it's this really nice wrap-off where Monika has to delete Sayori. There can be no literature club. It gives us this hint that, or gives us this knowledge that with the literature club there can only be pain. and thus Monica erases Sayori completely, erases the literature club. This, like, warning, do not play the game anymore. Hey, so, thank you for watching the video. I know it's been, like, a while since the last one, and admittedly, like, the quality, where it kept getting in my hair, I kind of rushed the end too, where it's like, I just needed to get a video out. But expect way more quality and hopefully more frequent uploads. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and that was the video. Bye!